What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of Conversations of Faith with friends and family. Right now, before you do anything else, if you haven't already, click the like button, hit the subscribe button, set the notification bell, share this. We've got a great episode for you today. We're joined with a friend of mine, a good buddy of mine, Tyler Rickman. Tyler, say hello.
Hello.
Tyler is a good friend of mine. We worked together for about a year, and he's got a testimony that I'm excited to hear about it. I'm excited for you to hear about it, and I think it's really going to bless you guys. I think it's going to give some insight that a lot of people really aren't aware of. We've been talking about it ourselves. So before we get into it, my other hostess with the mostest, Alex and Christy, guys, say hello.
Hello.
What's up?
Gang sign. I thought you were about to throw a gang sign.
I'm throwing him. I'm repping. I don't know what I'm repping, but I'm repping.
Hey, it's not the Lakers today. Usually he's dressed like a Lakers.
I'm full
I call him the Lakers towel boy, but
Yeah, I'll say the water boy.
he's the eighth man.
It's all good. That's good. I'm part of the team. I'm part of the team.
Always been a Lakers fan or before?
No, always been.
Okay.
Always.
Just making sure you're not like a LeBron chaser.
No, listen. I used to dislike LeBron because
Okay.
I'm a Kobe fan.
Kobe guy.
All the way. Magic, Kobe. I used to dislike until he came to the Lakers.
Okay.
So when he came to the Lakers, I had to.
Yeah.
Welcome
I had to
to the team.
repent.
Did you buy a jersey? Buy a LeBron jersey?
He did.
hilarious.
He did for real.
Oh, you got a
That's
jersey?
what he
Oh yeah.
The king.
Yeah.
King. Okay.
I got it.
Good. Well,
supporting him.
I mean, that's what.
Cool.
That's what you got to do. That's your team. That's your squad, ride or die. But I'm a fan of Tyler, and
Appreciate that.
yeah, I think
Where's your Tyler jersey at?
Yeah. I got a couple.
and I think Tyler had some fans, and that is to get into what I want to talk about today. And I'll let you go into more detail, but just to preface, Tyler got into the TikTok game when it was really taking off, and he really pursued a social media presence and content, and I think Tyler, we were talking about it earlier, is when you get a certain level of notoriety and fame, so to speak, it really starts to mess with your what how would you say it? I'll let you say it. Tyler, tell us about a little about your testimony.
Yeah, I mean, I'll start off just by talking about myself for a little bit, which I don't normally do. So y'all hanging with me?
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, I was born in Georgia, born and raised. Lived in a couple cities in Georgia, and then played football my whole life. And football was supposed to be that thing that I did for money one day. Didn't work out that way. So I went to Georgia Southern. I played football there. I had to walk on, had to try out. I didn't make it the first
Did
time.
the hard way.
Yep. We had to go to tryouts and run the 40s, and I didn't make it the first time. And 6 months later, I made it the second time, and then I ended up just hanging my cleats up. So after football, I didn't really know. I didn't have a plan. I didn't know what I wanted to do. I've always been in construction, so I figured, hey, construction might be something that I can do. And then I had an opportunity to be a state trooper.
Oh yeah, that's right.
I was 20 years old, and I went to the academy, which you can be 20, but you have to turn 21 when you graduate so you can carry a firearm.
Yeah.
I turned 21 2 months before graduation, and I was technically the youngest state trooper in history.
Oh man, yeah.
So I did that for 4 years. I enjoyed it. I think I saw a couple things that a young mind shouldn't see, and I thought I'd be prepared for that. I thought I was desensitized enough to see stuff like that, and it was okay for a while, and then it kind of caught up with me. I saw a few more things that I didn't want to see, so I decided to leave it, and I actually kind of spiraled when it came to alcohol at a young age, and to make a long story short, I ended up getting forced to resign over an off-duty incident. I wasn't working at the time, but I was in Georgia Southern at a party school. All my friends were still there, and I became a state trooper. I had a badge and a gun at 21, and all my friends were still in college, so I didn't know how to handle that.
Yeah.
I was doing things I wasn't supposed to be doing. But I've always been a good kid. I didn't want to get in trouble, and it just kind of happened that way. Anyways, after the state trooper thing, I got in construction. I started working in Covington, Georgia, for a small restoration company. We had these ladies in the office in the front desk, and I'd go over there and sit 30. You know how we do it. We used to do it, just sit 30, 40 minutes during the day. And they said, man, Tyler, you should really start doing TikToks. I was like, man, I don't even know what TikTok is. You know, this was when it really wasn't as big as it is today. And so anyways, I kept pushing that aside. I was not going to do that. And then I got my heart broken. Heartbroken. I was dating a girl, and she broke up with me, and I took it really bad. And then I made it into something good and got into really good shape. Best shape of my life. 6-pack, the whole thing, muscles bulging. You know, I mean, I just looked good. I was young. And that's when my confidence started to come back, and the girls kept on. Now they were like, you really got to get TikTok. I mean, you look great. You should, take advantage of it. So I did. And the first TikTok, I'll never forget it. The first TikTok I posted was with one of my friends. She was a girl, and we did a little dance. And I'm watching this TikTok while I'm working, and I'm like, it's got 2,000 likes. I was like, I think that's a lot. So I sent it to a couple friends, and I was like, hey, is this a lot? Is this a lot of likes? I feel like this is a lot. And they're like, that's a lot. Like 2,000 is your first video. And then the followers just kept going and going and going and going. And I'm talking 2 months into it, I think I had 140,000 followers in 2 months.
2 months.
2 months, I had 140,000. And I had one video get 2 million likes.
Dang.
And it wasn't a dancing video. It was conversation in the South. I did a video, just me portraying like I was talking to somebody and trying to say goodbye in the South.
Okay, I saw that one.
You saw that one? So
they won't let you get off the phone.
yeah, I was like, all right, now, well, I got to hit the and like I acted like he interrupted me and like was listening. Like, okay, I'll tell my mom that you said hello, and it. I did that for like a minute, and I was like, all right,
Yeah.
I gotta go. And that one got so many views, man, so many views, and I got a lot of followers from that too. And I just kept going with it. I was how brands and stuff try to offer you things, so I'd get some free things every now and then, nothing crazy. Some glasses, like the blue lens glasses, and I thought it was cool. I started getting paid, and I said, that's really cool. They started paying me for the videos, and I was making probably, at first I was making like $250 a month, which was cool. And then I started making something crazy like $1,200 a month.
Really?
Yes. And,
Wow.
and I was getting bigger and bigger. And I was like, I don't know what I'm going to do with this. I really don't. And I look back on it now, and like it was so long ago, and now people know exactly what to do with it. They know exactly how to do it, and you brand yourself.
Yeah.
I didn't have any of those resources, and I didn't have anybody to tell me, hey,
Yeah.
this is what you need to do with this. This is a lot of people. So I didn't do really anything with it. But I had a few people from L.A. reach out to me, and I went out to Tybee to meet one of them, and we did a collab video. And then all of a sudden, the people in my hometowns, I mean, I was dancing, but I've always enjoyed to dance. It's always been something that if you see me at a party, I'm going to be dancing. That's just the way I
Yeah,
am.
we're gonna have a battle here now.
My man Dancing Rick.
Hey, I'll get you. It's just the way I've always been. So when it started, I was doing that just because I like to do it, and I actually enjoyed doing those dance videos and learning to dance in 5 minutes and doing it and posting it. I enjoyed it so much. And the people that I actually know in my small towns, they thought I was famous, like legitimately famous, but I wasn't. I had, when it was all said and done, it was 465,000 followers, and I had close to 11 million likes on the page.
Wow.
Dang.
But so they think I'm famous, like you're famous, but I wasn't, not in my mind. I might have been what I call Georgia famous. Like all these little towns in Georgia, people know who I am. I could go to Atlanta and PBR, and I'm going to have 4 or 5 people come up to me, ask me for a picture or something like that, which was so cool. All this started going to my head. I'm talking just going to get something to eat. And you're sitting there like, I think people are watching me eat. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So the stuff is starting to go to my head a little bit to the point where I don't even want to leave the house, you know? And these people in my small towns, they started calling me names and commenting, you know, on my videos, and really close friends were really talking really bad about me, really bad.
Haters.
Yeah, you know, haters. And I had so much love on my page that, like, when I started getting those, I was like, why am I getting those? Like, why is that happening to me? Like, I don't understand. And I took that worse than all the thousands of comments that were good.
Isn't that interesting?
It's very interesting. It messes with your mind a ton.
Yeah.
People don't really understand that. And when I see celebrities kind of crash out and like have a hard time, I really can understand it. Not from the point of like a national fame,
Right.
but of a small town fame. I can see that being so much and so overwhelming that you really don't want to leave your house and you don't want to go nowhere or do anything unless it's for business. Anyways, it started to really get to me. I didn't know what to do with it, and then out of nowhere, I met a girl, and we had a baby. And once I had the baby, I deleted the entire thing. Okay. I deleted it, just flat out. People call me crazy. They were like, "You're crazy. I would never delete a page with that many followers." But I didn't want people to pry into my life. You know, we were going through a divorce as well, so I didn't want people to say things or to influence the way I was about to welcome a baby into the world. You know, I wanted it to be a clean mind, and just I wanted to be the father I could be to my daughter, and so I deleted the entire thing. But yeah, that's pretty much the synopsis of.
Yeah.
You know, I know it's kind of hard to explain. It's kind of hard for me to tell you how it happened, but it happened just like that. I'm talking just a couple months, thousands and thousands and thousands, hundreds of thousands of followers. Wow. It was insane.
Yeah, that's pretty insane. So how does your daughter now? Like, how far along, how ago was this?
Yeah, so my daughter's 2 now.
2, okay.
So this was about 2 years ago. And I have a 1-year-old son, and then I have a 7-year-old bonus son with my current. Yes. Yep.
That's awesome.
Yeah. And we're living happily ever after now.
That's great.
Well, sometimes, but it gets hard, but it's all good.
Yeah, and so, you know, I think that this, man, is a something that people just you look at, and I know a lot of people will look at social media. One thing I was talking about earlier, and I was like, "Oh, let's save this for when we start," is that we're trying to grow, right? We're trying to reach people. We're trying to build a brand. We're trying to do what you did, but then it's like you said, you don't realize the types of things that come with that. And I think there are some differences, and I don't mean to say you were doing it selfishly, but I think you would kind of agree that at a time you were promoting yourself.
Yes.
So,
yes. You know, I would say at the beginning it was really harmless. Like, and I didn't know what TikTok was. So it was just really harmless, stuff that I was posting. And then, you know, about halfway through all of it, you know, I was keeping up with the trends of what other people were doing. And I was trying to follow other people at that point. And that's when it became not so innocent, I guess, in that sense. I had a lot of younger girl followers, and I didn't know how to handle that. And I had a niece, you know, at the time. And when I saw these young girls, you know, following me or commenting, it made me feel like bad.
Yeah, right.
It made me feel bad. And even the people that I knew who had younger girls who followed me, and when I would go wherever they were like, "Oh my God," you know, I was like, "This is weird." You know, I don't like that. I don't like that these 15-year-old girls are following me on and saying things on my comments. I don't like that. So, I mean, that kind of went from innocent to not so innocent.
And,
you know,
at the same time, it's almost like but what you have, and not to sound weird, you're handsome, you're in shape,
Right.
and and you can dance. You know,
Yeah.
you've got these things working for you, and in that type of in that environment, you have to use what you have, right? You've got to you're like, but okay, it's nice when they're of age, right? When it's appropriate, but you're like, you can't really separate the two.
At some point, you try to find a purpose for what you're doing
Mm-hmm.
instead of just posting. You know, I was like, I'm just posting dance videos. I look good, and like I have no purpose, so it does feel bad. Like I feel bad that these little girls are commenting and liking and following me. So then I would be like, okay, well, I'm gonna do like the gym thing and try to make a gym routine. But I was working so much I couldn't even keep up with that.
Yeah.
And people were commenting and wanting to buy a program to me to help them with their nutrition and all that. And I couldn't keep up with it. I took on 4 people and they paid me $100 for 3 months to give them advice. And when a 5th person tried to join, I said, I can't.
Because you got your
I
job,
got a full-time
too.
job.
Yeah, full-time job.
I was going to Alabama, traveling to Alabama every week, coming back. I mean, I was like, I can't do it. So that kind of, I was going to do the personal trainer thing, but you know, I didn't have the time. I had to work.
Yeah, and
I was working during all this too.
yeah, so and I think a lot of people, I think older people might look at the social media age and how people earn income and like, oh, that's not a real job. It is.
It is now.
Like if you have to dedicate time if you're taking it seriously. If you want to, there are sacrifices in time. Like you have to decide: is this what I'm going to do, or is this what I'm going to
Right.
do? But you can't do
Right.
both and be successful.
I think you can have a job in it. You know, obviously you'd have to be very popular to make that your full-time job.
Right.
That's probably the hardest thing to do is to make a podcast popular. And you know, everybody wants to do a podcast that of people that can talk to people, you know,
Right.
people that like to talk and like to talk about issues. But if you don't already have a platform to go off of, it's really tough. It's really hard unless you just hit it big and you get some views on something, and then you can kind of snowball it from there. But yeah, I mean, as far as me before, you know, obviously going back, I would be like, man, I need to start a podcast. That'd be my purpose, right? But you know, it wasn't a thing. Really.
Right.
There was only a couple podcasts.
Right.
I think maybe Joe Rogan maybe just started when all this kind of happened, but it really wasn't a thing. I didn't know what to do with it.
Yeah.
I didn't know any, obviously, career path to go with it. There was nothing at the time.
Yeah. So I was in thinking about how do we promote this episode. I was, I sent you Romans 12:2 that says, "And do not be conformed to this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind, that you may prove what is that good and acceptable and perfect will of God," which I think your testimony is kind of like, man, that's it, right?
Right.
Yet one time you were conformed to the world. You were just doing it, and not that it started out from a bad place, but tell me a little bit about your journey with faith. Have you always? I mean, you went to a Christian school, if I'm not mistaken.
That's right. Yeah. So my spiritual journey has. I went to church when I was little. My grandparents took me to church. I can't remember that club that we did. It's like the Awanas Club.
The one, yeah.
Yeah, so I was a part of all that, and I mean, my whole life was centered around God. My whole life, my entire life. Unfortunately, I had a bad childhood. I didn't have a father in the home. I didn't have any direction, nobody to teach me things. So, and my single mother was working at a 911 center, which, if you know, you don't get to see them a lot because they're working 12 hours and then they're sleeping pretty much the whole time.
Yeah.
So when we were teenagers, after about 14 years old, we had no direction, we had no supervision, and our faith at that time was non-existent. We didn't go to church. We didn't do none of that. I'm talking, we were lifting pillow couches to see if we can find a couple quarters to get a McDouble or something like that. It was just really hard. And before that, the man that was in our home, he was just a terrible alcoholic. Terrible. The best way I can describe it to you is he would make us. He would yell from his bed to go get him more beer. and he had a mountain of beer cans on the side of his
Oh, man.
bed that were as high as his bed on the floor. So it just wasn't great. And looking back on it now, that has such an effect, especially on young boys. It really does. Girls, I can't. I don't know what it's like for you guys if somebody was in that situation as a girl, but for boys with no direction and nobody to look up to when it comes, I mean, it's so bad, so bad mentally.
Yeah.
So, anyways, when they got divorced, it became better. We didn't have such a toxic environment, nobody yelling, nobody fighting, none of that. And we went to Greater Atlanta Christian School in Norcross.
Oh, okay.
I don't know if I can say this. It's been so long. It's been 10 years, 14 years ago. So they paid us to go over there and play football. We were
I didn't know
First
that.
NIL right there.
we were playing football at Eastside of Covington.
Oh, really?
Yep, and we went to the playoffs both year. I was a 4-year letter. I have a twin brother, by the way. I didn't say that.
No kidding.
But we look just the same. So
Really?
So on a football team perspective, it's like, oh my gosh,
Mind-blowing.
yeah.
Are we talking to the real Tyler?
Yeah, I was gonna say, Tyler, is this really you?
That's so funny you say that. I used to go, to school, and I would have conversations with people, and they thought I was my brother the entire time.
What's your brother's name?
But I wouldn't stop them because it got to a point where it's so annoying,
wouldn't.
where I was like, yeah. And then we get in the car, and we'd have to talk about all the conversations that we had to make sure we can
wow.
cross-examine
Everybody's on
what
the
was
same
going on.
That's going to be your podcast conversation with Tyler and his twin.
I'm going to say one more thing about
So funny.
that. It's been so long ago, and I didn't even graduate college, but my brother took my ACT for me
Really?
because I took it 3 times and I couldn't get the score. And my brother's so good at tests that he can just go in there and whip it up. And I said, dude, I'll pay you $300 to go in there on a Saturday.
He made you pay him?
Yes.
Hey, so Tyler,
I didn't pay him. I didn't pay him.
You did?
who was the better athlete of the two?
Oh, man. I would say, in the early high school years, he was.
Man, you should have had him try it out the first time.
Just do all the work for
When
me.
Go ahead.
I didn't get really good until I got older. I didn't get quick, or like my hand-eye coordination was just off when I was younger. There's something was off, and then when I got older, I really started to understand it, and I started getting better in my athletics. But,
Oh, my God.
before that, he went to Western Carolina. He ended up walking on at Western Carolina. He only played for a little bit, and he went to the Army. But
Oh, okay.
anyways,
You were talking about your upbringing.
yeah. So
That was a good sidebar. I needed that.
So they paid us to go to Greater Atlanta Christian. They recruited us. I actually had a family member that was a coach up there, and he had talked to a few coaches, and they paid our whole. Greater Atlanta Christian is like $14,000 a year.
Yeah, that's a nice
And,
school.
They took care of us, and I'm so grateful for everybody at Greater Atlanta Christian. I don't think they did anything illegal. When I say they paid us, we didn't have to pay tuition, and
Yeah.
we didn't have to pay for lunches or nothing like that. So they brought us in. We actually ended up living with other football players. We were living with our grandparents, but my brother came home late one night after a football game, and they got into it, and we got kicked out. And they were like, "Well, Tyler, you can stay if you want to." And I'm like, "You're gonna kick my brother out?"
Yeah, I'm not doing that.
We're 16. Like,
Oh, dang.
what am I gonna do? So, we ended up living with other football players and in mansions. I mean, really nice houses. One of the friends that I lived with, I had my own house. I lived in the guest house. I had my
Really?
own kitchen. I had my own bathroom. My own bedroom. Everything. I had my own living room. I lived in a totally separate wing of the
That's
house.
like a sophomore? As a sophomore?
junior.
Junior?
Yeah.
Nice.
And then we just got so shuffled around. At some point, we felt like burdens. We were like really, truly. We never had a home.
Oh, man.
After my junior year, we started the football season off great. Everything was going good, and then I sprained my knee. And then my brother actually tore his ACL, and kept playing on it. Kept playing on it. No surgery, nothing. I think he sat out 2 games. We played at the Mercedes-Benz, and I think he just sat out 1 game. Or was it the Georgia Dome at the time? I don't remember.
Probably the Georgia. Well, I don't know. How old are you?
Anyways, when we started getting hurt, I don't know if people just stopped believing in us or what, you know. But we got so shuffled around, ended up living with my girlfriend my senior year, which is not good, you know,
Yeah.
not for a young kid. But that we always got treated like men, like grown men,
Wow.
you know. And we weren't. We didn't know what we were doing. We didn't have
Right.
a dollar in our name, you know. We didn't know what we were doing.
Right.
You know, we were just getting shuffled around, but it was our decision that we wanted to go to Great Atlanta Christian. And my mom let us do that. And instead of my mom saying, no, y'all are going to stay with me, because she was just getting remarried, and y'all are going to go to Mary Persons and Macon and play football there, which would have been fine. Mary Persons actually ended up being a good football team.
Yeah.
You know, we were like, we don't want to go play there because they're not going to be that good. They're actually really good. There's a couple Georgia football players that
Yeah.
I forgot that one guy's name. He's a defensive lineman that went to Mary Persons, but
I've heard the name of the high school, and that's why.
yeah. So we got shuffled around a lot. So I mean, whenever I had faith always, and when I went to church at school, like I felt so good, you know, going to church. But I never had an adult figure to keep that direction for me, and I never, you know, it was all up to me, really. You know what I mean? So, I would say when I got to college and all that, the faith really wasn't there. I would say I was probably a 3 or 4 time churchgoer, and then Christmas and you know, Easter and stuff like that. But I always had him there. That's what's funny. When you look back at it,
Yeah.
I actually remember the times that I prayed when I look back at those months. I don't remember going to church. I remember talking to God. It got way more faithful when I became a trooper, because everything about state trooper is God.
Yeah.
And when you go through school, it's God. And I had a roommate. My roommate his name was John Rigsby, and he was a legit preacher. And we did Bible study every morning.
Oh, that's awesome.
He made me do it. And I would say, John, I can't. Let me sleep in the bed for 10 more minutes, you know, because we were getting up at 3 a.m. I was like, just let me lay here for 3. He's like, no, you need to get up and get on your knees. We're going to read the Bible right now, and then we're going to pray. And we did that every morning until he became my roommate no more. I think I got a new roommate or something.
I need to sleep those 15 minutes, bro.
And then the other guy, Kyle, then my new roommate, we slept all the time. We didn't do any Bible study, but it got better then. And then, you know, when TikTok happened, there was no faith. There was nothing. I mean, it was just bottomless. You know, it was a pit, really, when it came to my mentality. Again, God's always there, and I always could talk to him. But there's that one song, you know, when times get rough, that's the only time I talk to God, and that was kind of the way it was during that time. It wasn't until I had children where I felt the Lord more than anything. And when I had my daughter, I backed that up. When I got married the first time, I felt God touch me in a way. I was we got married at Black Rock Mountain. I don't know if you know where that is, but it's in Clayton, Georgia, North Georgia, and it overlooks the entire city. A beautiful mountain, and I've gone there since I was a child. And they do Easter sunrise service there, and they'll play music and watch the sunrise come up during Easter morning. They have donuts and coffee. So I have a very tight connection to that place, and I decided to get married up there with my first wife. And I remember standing on top of that mountain, and my uncle was marrying us. I don't know. What do you call that?
Yeah. I mean, presiding, marrying,
What is that?
I think
Officiating?
What's that word?
officiating,
Yeah.
presiding.
Is that He's a judge, so he can do that.
Put it in the
Go
comments
officiate.
below. What is Tyler thinking, though?
I'm like, what is? And I was standing on top of that mountain, and when he was saying the stuff about, you know, forever and till death do you part, I didn't even hear that. I'm hearing God. I look back on it now, and I think God was trying to tell me that you shouldn't get married.
Okay.
Honestly, because right after we got married, everything just started going downhill, and we ended up getting divorced. But when I say that I felt him, I couldn't feel my body. I almost feel like I was looking at myself.
Oh,
from
wow.
above and looking at what was going on. Anyways, we got married, and I will never forget the feeling still won't of that day. And my faith just started to grow a little bit more every day. And then I would see my daughter, and that would make me feel God's presence as well. Children will really make you feel
Absolutely.
the Lord.
Absolutely.
And, you know, the Bible is pretty much, I say this, but it's written for everybody.
Mm-hmm.
But if you're a parent, it will stick with you. Almost every word that is in the Bible will stick with you if you're a parent.
Mm-hmm.
So when I became a parent, that's when I started picking up the Bible again. And that's when I started wanting to guide my family into church. And then I met my current. And I kind of vowed myself that I didn't have somebody to show me a direction as a child, but I can show my children a direction.
Right.
And I can influence their life in a good way. And I was like, I'm going to promise myself not to go the other way and not to leave them. It's unfortunate, you know, I only get my daughter every other weekend, and that kills me. It really kills me. It's in a good situation now to where I get her more than that. But anyways, I had this guy, my landlord, who before that was my current's best friend's brother or husband. So my current's best friend's husband, Robert, a very godly man. He one day said, "Hey, why don't you come to this Bible study?" And I said, I don't really go to Bible study. You know, I've never been to one really, I don't think. He said, "You'll love it, dude. It's like 4 or 5 guys. We're all 28 in our 30s. You'll love it, man. We just sit there and we talk, and we talk realness instead of trying to cover up things in church that people don't want to talk about."
Right.
He says, "You can talk about anything you want there." He did this for 6 months, asking me to go to this men's group. 6 months. And I said no every time. I didn't say no, but I just kind of blew it off. Oh, yeah. But
You
he
sent your brother to talk to him.
He went for you.
Go tell him no.
go to this church. But I look back, man, what a persistent guy.
Mm-hmm.
You know, when you talk about a mission for us and as Christians, man, that is the definition. He did not stop asking me to go to this. And at some point, I got to a point where I was like, this guy is sticking with me. Mm-hmm. You know, and I have like a problem with men just because I didn't grow up with one. So I always had, like, when I see a guy trying to either become my friend or show me something, I'm always hesitant because I don't know if it's in good intention. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. It's just like embedded in me now. I have to really try hard to open that up. And I finally said, "Man, I'm gonna go to that men's group." I texted him. I said, "I'm gonna go to that men's group. You know, what do I do? Where do I go?" And he told me everything. And the first men's group that we went to after, I said, "Man, I feel so good." I didn't really hardly say much, but I was like, "Man, that felt great." Like, y'all, I didn't feel judged. I didn't feel like a new Christian, which I didn't want to feel like a new Christian. I've always been a Christian, but you know, I feel like in a situation like that, this guy hasn't been here. You know, probably just making stuff up in my head,
Right.
But he made me feel great. And I, like, four meetings into it, I asked the Lord into my life again.
Amen.
And
Man,
I'm gonna try not to get choked up when
Hey.
I talk about this.
hey, we got you right
It's
there.
funny because in the men's group, if I start talking, they know I'm gonna cry because I'll just be like, "Man, it's so powerful."
Yeah, the love of the Lord,
It's
man.
so
that's
powerful.
That's when you know that you have it just a revelation of the love of God, and I think it's in the Word. I don't know specifically, but it talks about people who are forgiven for the most really have that. They know that, and that's why it's so powerful because you're like, man, Lord, you are just God. You love me.
Yeah.
People who haven't surrendered. I think that's what I'm trying to say is people who have surrendered the most are the most grateful, and then people who are still holding on to things they can't. I mean, it's hard for them to experience what you're saying.
And
But
holding
please.
on to things that's a really important part of salvation. You have to allow yourself to let that stuff go, and that's so hard. Not having my father around. Why did he leave? When why haven't I met my father? All that stuff was so pent up inside of me that it wouldn't allow me to
Yeah.
get, mature myself
Right.
and move on because I kept it. And I could tell myself all the time that I'm not keeping this on me, but I was.
Yeah.
I was. The day before I got saved in that, it's like fourth or fifth men's group, I was driving in my car and I was just going through it, bills behind, and I was just in a really bad spot mentally, I feel like. And I was driving down 85 going towards my house. I think I was dropping my daughter off and I was driving back home. And I just broke down, man. I grabbed the steering wheel and just cried out to God, like, come and save me, please. And I just belted out, like, come and save me, come and save me. And he did. And, sorry. Whew. I asked him to take away anxiety and my stress. And I told him, just take it. And sorry.
I'm good, brother.
Oh, you're good, brother.
I'm gonna need one too.
You are
And,
good.
When I got done, and when I say I was yelling at it, I was yelling at the top of my lungs. At some point, I was probably yelling. You couldn't even hear what I was saying. That's how hard I was yelling. And immediately after, it's probably 5 minutes. And I'm looking at the sky while I'm driving. And immediately after, I felt nothing. No anxiety, no stress, nothing.
That's awesome.
And like I say that sometimes, and people back, I don't know what you're talking about. And I was like, you'll never know unless you
That's
do
right.
it. You won't.
Yeah.
Like he will take it away from you. It's like you just don't understand. I couldn't feel pain. My back used to hurt. My shoulders used to hurt. My knees. And I told him to take everything away from me. My anxiety and my stress
Yes.
and my pain. And I didn't know he took it all. My body doesn't hurt anymore, unless it's self-inflicted. Like I'm playing dodgeball yesterday, for 3 hours,
Jump zone.
it's self-inflicted pain. I just felt new, and it was the most refreshing moment in my life.
Praise God.
And it wasn't in the church. It wasn't when I got saved. That moment in that car was the most refreshed I've ever felt.
Do you think it's because in that moment it was like you said, you were just like, I'm laying it down. Maybe in those other times it was a decision of the moment, or hey, this is the right thing to do right now. But in that moment, you were like, I can't. You came to the end of yourself, and that's why it just was
I
so
think
powerful.
part of that, but I don't think that came till later. I think during that moment, it was because I knew I was talking to him, and I knew I had his attention, and that was the strongest part of it. I could feel it, and I could feel him.
That's amazing.
Well, all I see, like, through the whole process of you sharing your story is, like, no matter how much you fought it, he was always there for you. Like,
That's right.
He kept coming after you.
Yeah.
And I think that's something that you know. So at that moment when you finally said, I surrender,
Yeah.
and you knew he was there the whole time, that's probably why you got so emotional, because it was like, man, he does love me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He loves me enough to send all these people after me.
That's right.
Yeah.
And
That's an amazing story.
It was very just a spiritual kind of thing, out of body experience,
Yeah.
I would say. At some point, I didn't even know what I was saying. If
Yeah.
somebody was in the car, that I could have been talking a different language. I don't know.
Yeah. Speaking in tongues.
I
You
don't know.
That's right.
Wow.
So I get I get done with that, and then I asked to get saved, and that was a great experience for me. And I was actually in the service before that, listening to the service, and at the end, we're worshiping the last couple songs, and they ask if you want to take the Lord into your life. But I didn't want to do it there. I wanted to do it with my guys.
Yeah.
But I walked to the altar and just fell. I've never done that before. I looked at my wife and I kissed her. I call her my wife. She's not my wife yet, but I call her my wife. I kissed her and I just walked up there and fell. to the ground. Never done that. And I stayed there until the lights come on. And
Amen.
That's beautiful.
just
Surrender.
it's a surrender.
Yeah.
And I think especially for men, it's so hard to do something like that.
Yeah.
And maybe for me, because I didn't have a guy in my life to feel like I could talk to, or I could confide in. It was always supposed to be God. I was supposed to confide in Him, and I was fighting Him my whole life. My whole entire life, I was fighting and pushing away. And He was constantly coming back for me.
That's right.
Constantly. And I think you're right. I mean, it was a realization of me saying, it's been here this whole time.
Yeah.
And
No, and I like that part, that you understand that as a man who's not had that other man influence in your life, it's kind of hard to be like, oh, this is my father, but what has my natural father ever done for me?
right.
So
right.
to trust another father could be difficult, so that's why you kept running,
That's right.
but he kept running after you.
Yeah. I'm glad he did too.
I wanted to ask you, because you said something earlier and it got me thinking. So we've known each other just over a year.
That's probably 2 years now.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, you're
Yeah.
right. You're right.
I just haven't worked with you for a year.
That's right. That time where, so this, the rededication of your life and your desire to pursue the Lord, that happened after we started working together. Am I right? Because
Started after.
because I remember thinking, just when there would be interactions between us at work, and I'm like, man, I don't know, I don't get Tyler. Like I feel like he's kind of. I saw that what you were saying, like where you said it's hard for me to really let guys in.
Yep.
I remember a few instances where I'm like, something would happen, nothing major. Obviously,
Right.
we're buddies, right? We're boys. So I just remember thinking that was strange.
Right.
I thought we were cool, and then it's almost like you were kind of saying, okay, well, like if a dog growls, like, like, hey, you can get close, but not too close.
Yeah.
But then I know that there was a time where you and I, man, when we found out that we love the Lord, it was just like we just really went
Yeah.
to the next level.
Oh, yeah.
And
Yeah.
I just think that I wanted to confirm that was in that time frame.
Yeah, it
I
was.
just want to make sure that you really like me.
I like you, man. You're cool. You're okay.
He's testing your ego.
It was the twin that didn't like you.
What's your brother's name?
Jared.
Hey, I was wondering,
Yeah.
like, you just remember what you said yesterday? He was like, oh.
No, I
Like,
said
let me check my notes.
Yeah.
I really.
We make a double income. We just go to
that's-
each other's job.
So let me ask you about and your girlfriend's name. What's her name?
Hannah.
Hannah. Now, are you guys? Did Hannah grow up in church? Also, is she a believer?
Yes, she did, and it made me feel good when I was going through all this. I wasn't going to pressure her to follow anything. I wasn't going to do that. What I wanted to do, and what we talked about in our men's group, which is so important for young men to understand this, is when you are in a household, you have to lead.
Yeah, that's right.
And it should not be the wife leading, especially the spiritual aspect of everything. It's in, they can lead. I'm not saying you can't, women can't lead, but it should be the father leading the household, and we would start to pray, before the meals, and I remember I was like, I'm not gonna force this on her at all. I don't feel like I would want that, and I'm not gonna do that to her. One day I went, during all this, our little baby's like little. He's like 5 months old. So going to church with him is really tough. But they have the live streams and stuff. So she would watch the live streams while I would go do my men's group. And I remember waking up and getting ready to go to men's group, and I came out and she had a coffee and she had the live stream on. And she had gotten a little women's devotional, and she was reading Bible, and I was like, that's so cool. Mm-hmm. And this was like probably 2 or 3 weeks into me going to men's group. So yes, she is faithful,
That's
and she is
awesome.
starting to get more faithful, just like I am too.
That's great.
You know, I think for us, sometimes we feel like we get so busy that we don't have time for the Lord, and you always have time for the Lord.
That's right.
And you know, I got my Bible in my truck, you know,
Yeah.
and during lunch I'll sit there and read a few and pray. And even if that's all you can do, I mean, that's all you can do, you know. But after I got saved, I just want to jump into this because you made me think of something that we talked about the other day. But after I got saved, I made a decision I'm gonna get baptized. Never been baptized before, and I just felt it. I said, "This is why I haven't been baptized before. This is why I wasn't baptized at 15. I had a chance to get baptized at 15, and I was like, that's why I didn't do it. You know, it's all a plan, and now I'm gonna get baptized. And what a great day that was. I wasn't even emotional during that day. You know, when you think about as a Christian baptism, you think that's going to be the most emotional part of your journey, but it was the happiest part of my journey.
Yeah.
Like I wasn't sad, I wasn't crying.
Yeah.
You know, there was no tears. I was just very happy, and my whole family was there. All
That's
my kids,
awesome.
my mom was there. My grandparents were there. They drove from here all the way to Peachtree City.
Oh
That's a
man.
long drive. So I was just like super happy. And then I decided to quit Homestar, where we used to work. I don't know if we should have said that, but
It's
Doesn't matter.
okay.
I mean, I have nothing bad to
I'm
say
still
about
there.
it. I decided to quit, and I had the opportunity to build somebody's house. And I was like, well, either way, I'm going to quit. I'm going to build their house for them. And then I'll see what happens after that. But it's going to give me a couple months to just decompress. And our job is very demanding. And I was getting to the point where I was burnt out. And I was like, well, I'm just going to build their house. And I sat there and prayed during a sunrise on my back porch and just asked for direction. I want direction, but if it's too much, don't give it to me. But if it's what I need, give it to me, and I can handle it. He gave everything to me. And when I say this to people, sometimes they're like, "That's crazy." Like that didn't happen. I made a business, made a logo, and didn't pay for anything. And I made probably in 4 months, probably 6 months, $190,000.
Dang.
He gave it all to me.
Amen.
Amen.
And I think we were talking about this the other day. I wasn't ready for it. And that's what's so funny about all of it is I asked him to show me that, and he did. But I wasn't ready for it, and he knew I wasn't ready for it. He knew I wasn't going to be able to sustain it or make anything really of it. But he said, I'm going to show you this. I'm going to show you what is there and what can be, but you're not going to make it. You're not going to become a millionaire or anything like that. And I knew it the whole time. Like I was excited and things would happen and I would get jobs and I thought this is great. It's going to keep going sometimes. And then I was like, it's not. I know it's not. I know I'm going to have to work for somebody else. I'm not going to be a business owner. Not right now. It's true. He will give it all to you, but he will also teach you lessons along the way that you can't pay for, that you can't experience any other way. And he will bless you, but he will also take it away from you. And my faith started to leave about halfway through this because I was getting so frustrated. And I would talk to him like, I'm getting frustrated. I can't do this. You need to send me more. And I wasn't ready for it. And he just didn't do it. Obviously I got a new job now and I work somewhere else, but I was so thankful for, all of last year in this journey of seeing what God can give me and what I can do with it. But all along he knew that I wasn't going to be able to sustain it. But yeah.
Do you think that at a certain point, the busyness of it, being a business owner, kind of like with the social media thing, you've got these two things that you're trying to do, and they just starting a business, I mean,
Yeah.
I've never done it, but it requires constant. Do you
Yep.
think that somewhere along the way that, and not to say that you stepped away from faith or that you quit, but like your focus became centered on how can I do it? How can like just let me make this work now.
Right.
Do you think that was a,
I think it got to the busyness part. It was only me. I did have like a helper, but it was only me really trying to move a mountain. Really. And I have kids and stuff too, so I mean it gets stressful. And you're like, am I going to be able to pay rent or and then he'd give me a job and I'd get a job out of nowhere. And it's like, thank you, but like let's keep it going. Give me like 10 or give me like 15 at one time and I can do it. And he never did that,
but I think that's like what you said. We believe that you don't get the whole thing at one time. It's what you can, you take a step here and you
Right.
take a step here. And I do believe that what you were saying is true, that the lessons that you learn, one, rely on God.
Right.
Trust God, put God first in everything, make him your source, and then let him bless you through the work of your hands. And then, where was I going? Why did I lose that thought? But the lessons, learning what you did in that amount of time, you won't make the same mistakes again.
Right. And I think those things that you just listed off are always the constant that you should be doing, that you should be putting God first and continuing your faith. But the other things that we sometimes, especially me, that I expect because I'm doing the right things is not really how it works. And we don't know. You don't know. You don't know what's going to happen tomorrow. You don't know what's going to happen next month. So you have to stay constant with the Lord on the prayers and reading and just being faithful and being a good person. And then everything else, you don't really know what's going to happen.
Yeah.
And that's life. That's why we're mortal. You know what I mean? And that's why our time is limited on this earth. So I mean, it was a great experience. I think about it now, and I think we were talking about this the other day. Once you get saved and baptized, it's not over.
Right.
It's not over, and sin is not over. You
Right.
know, I think that's probably not the most annoying thing, but it's like, why I get baptized, my sins should go away. I should stop sinning. It's just not how it works, right? Because we're human beings, so we ate the fruit. You know what I mean? So it's always remembering that it's not going to just completely get better. Like God's not just going to come in and give you everything that you ever wanted. It's just not how it works.
Yeah, there is a mind renewal, and I wrote down the scripture, Matthew 7:13. It says, "Enter by the narrow gate, for wide is the gate and broad is the way that leads to destruction, and there are many who go in by it." And it's a I don't want to make it sound like it's hard, but it is. It requires that time, that dedication to the Lord, so that you renew your heart and your mind to saying, like you gave those things, he took those things from you, the pains, the hurts, the physical ailments that he took from you, the time that we spend will renew our minds to taking those things that are flesh, that our flesh desires, that the enemy wants to put in front of our faces and say, hey, you remember you used to like doing this? Remember how this made you feel? Yeah. But now when you are born again and you spend time with the Lord and ask him to take those things too, that will over time.
It's a slow thing.
You got to be,
it's a slow thing.
Earnest about it.
It does start going away though. Mm-hmm. It does, and you just got to stay consistent with it. And one day might not be so great, and the next day might be the greatest day when it comes to your faith. It's a continuous thing. Yeah. Something that you always are going to have to work towards. But we're all students of the Lord. Mm-hmm. And I think to me, what clicked to me was the student. Like, you are a student, and God is here to teach you how to follow Him and how to live like Him, or how to live like Jesus. And He's going to teach you those things. It's just always a constant thing. I was so bad at school that I hate to study. So getting over that, the studying part and the reading part, eventually I got over it, and now I enjoy it. But at first it was hard. It's going to be hard at first, especially if you're not used to studying, or if you don't like to study, or if you don't. It got easier when I had kids, because every word that I read just struck some sort of nerve, a good nerve. You know what I
Yeah,
mean?
I agree with you on that. Like when you have a child and you just understand that you can't love that child as much as you are loved by the Father, and
Right.
just the thing, it really does. It's an advantage, I think, to understanding the love of God is to be a parent, to show someone and then say. And it's interesting because there are times in my life where, as a parent, you're like, can you just do this? If you'll just do this, this would be easier. And then as an adult, I'm like, if I would just do that, if I would just do
Like God
this.
saying
Double
the same
standard.
thing.
Yeah, it's like, why? What is it? But
Double standards.
yeah.
Yeah.
So, well, let me just add something real quick. So you mentioned Jesus as our example.
Yes.
Jesus said one time to the disciples that he said, "Be in the world, but be not of the world." So it's important that we know that we're going to be in the world, and like you said, we're going to experience things that are in the world. If you're there, you're going to experience those things. If you're in cold weather, you're going to be cold, and etc. So what does it mean to be in the world but not of the world? So Jesus' success came based off the fact that he always heard the Father. Faith is in John, I think it's Matthew 3:17. Jesus, there was an audible voice from God. He said, "This is my beloved Son, in whom I am well pleased." God was announcing that this is my Son, and he's pleasing me by faith, because Hebrews 11:6 tells you that faith is what pleases God. So Jesus was pleasing him because he was in faith. Well, how does faith comes? Romans 10:17 says faith comes by hearing, and hearing by the word of God. So I think sometimes we mistake faith for something else. Faith is solely hearing what God said. It's kind of like that one person that you trust the most, and that person tells you that. Because he told you that, that's it.
Right.
Because you trust him. You know that he's not lying to you. You know he's not a deceiver. So because he told you that, you're gonna trust that. So faith comes by hearing from God, knowing that he is not a liar, that whatever he said can't return void to him, and you taking on that word and making it real to you. The mistake we make sometimes is thinking that what I believe, and we label it as faith, and I think God is going to make that to be something that's not, and that's the enemy.
Right.
Because remember that's what Jesus says: be in the world, be there, but be not of. How can you not be not of if when you're there? If you're solely hearing the voice of God as you're going through those places, and that was his example, to show us how you live in all this loss and this chaos and all these things. How do I maneuver through all these things? Well, you maneuver through this by hearing my voice. And I talked about this once, and my wife and I, we used to lead the youth group, and I talked about this one of the podcasts, and we did an exercise with the kids in which we gave them different headsets, and I hit with the microphone, and one of the headsets on one of the kids, we turned it down real low. The voice was real; he could barely hear, and the other one had it real high, and I hit, and we blindfolded them. No, they were blindfolded. And we hit a ball, and we told them that ball, they were supposed to find that ball, and they were supposed to listen to me. But what I told the other kids is, as they're in the process of going there, you confuse them. You keep them away from the ball.
Right.
You tell them anything, but you keep them away from that ball. Not physically touching them, but just by telling them. Because I want to see if they're going to trust you more than the voice they're hearing here.
Sure.
I want to see
That's
that.
good.
And the one, of course, I could hear real loud. The voice of the kids, he could barely hear it. But every now and then, he would kind of like lean towards that way, because oh, that's my buddy. I trust him.
Right.
But I told him to hear the voice in the inside that we're hearing. The other one could barely hear, and so he was just going by the other voice.
Right.
So sometimes that, to me, that represents the reason why I taught that lesson, because that represents being in the world and not being of the world. It's you listening to that voice. So remember, there is an enemy out there, and he operates very subtle. He's a liar. He's a deceiver. That's the only way he can operate, and he operates that way. He operates to the giving us ideas. That's what that verse that Eli had read in Romans 12:1-2 says, "Be not of the world." But before that verse, it says that you give yourself as a living sacrifice. A living sacrifice, meaning even though you're in this body, like Paul said in Galatians 2:20, he said, I am crucified with Christ. Crucifixion means that I am laying at that cross. If you think of yourself in that cross, what can you do?
Right.
Nothing.
Right.
I'm crucified with Christ, nevertheless I live, yet not I. Meaning I'm not going by the voice of my friends, the voice of the world, the voice of
Myself.
my whatever. I'm going by the other voice.
Right.
It's no longer I that lives, but Christ lives in me. And the life which I now live in the flesh, I live by the faith of the Son of God who died and gave himself for me. So it's important that we understand what faith is. Because faith, sometimes people mistake faith. Faith is what God told you. If God told you something, man, it's over with.
Right.
There's nothing nobody can do. And people may tell you, hey, Tyler, you think you can move that mountain? Yeah, God told me I can move it.
Right.
And you're going to appear like an idiot to the world.
That's right.
But if God told you can move that mountain, if God told you can walk on water, hey,
I can.
He created all this. Yeah. He made all this.
Yes.
He makes this operate. All the enemy does is deceives us into thinking that, hey, man, it goes this way. No, buddy. If God told you so, it's important that we know what faith is. And once you hear that voice of God in your heart, it's over with.
It's very important to understand faith.
Yes.
And that's that. I agree with you. And a lot of Christians today don't understand faith. That reminds me that what you just said of The Chosen. If you haven't watched The Chosen, watch it, because it really does. Most of the episodes help me understand faith, and the story of Jesus. It does help that too. But that show really talks about faith, and Jesus talks. The guy that plays Jesus, it's not Jesus, but the guy that plays Jesus.
Spoiler alert.
Spoiler alert, it's not Jesus.
It's not the real one, guys.
No,
He looks really close. But he they talk about faith a lot. And have you ever seen the show? Anybody?
Yeah.
I watch episodes.
You notice how a lot of the times the guy that plays Jesus says, "Have faith."
Yeah.
Where's your faith? Have faith. So that whole show, to me, after I watched it after I got baptized. I really understood faith. I said, it's got to be that way or no way. It's got to be His way or no way.
Yeah.
And there's no in between. There's no, I'm going to do this today and then tomorrow I'll stop, or I'm going to do that and then maybe next week I'll stop doing that. It's not that. It can't be.
You can't serve two masters.
Yeah.
He is, and that's it.
Yeah.
And notice what you said right there when you said, when Jesus asked them, "Where's your faith?" So where's your faith? Like the example of Jesus when he told the disciples, "Let us go to the other side." Remember, and they woke him up and said, "Hey, look, we're drowning here, man. Wake up." He said, "Where's your faith?" Where is the word I told you?
So good.
Was that in your ear or was that in your heart?
That's right.
Because if it's in your heart, you should have grabbed the pillow just like me, and you should have been sleeping.
Yep.
If it's just in your ear, then so he's
good
asking
word.
him, "Where's what I told you?"
It's in your ear, your eyes are on the storm.
And it should be in your heart, because out of the abundance of the heart, the mouth speaks. And notice they spoke from their ear,
Yep.
and it just nothing, of
Yep.
course. So yes, it's very important that we understand what faith is, because without faith, you're not going to please God.
All right, and faith is an anxiety killer. It'll kill your anxiety. A lot of people don't know that either. My wife struggles with that sometimes, and I say, just have faith. It's going to work out. It might not right now. It might not in 2 weeks. Might be a month. Might be a year. But at some point it will. You just got to have faith that it will. It's the same faith that we have for the Lord. You have to have faith in your own life, that He's going to look out for you, and He will. I mean, he's done amazing things to me.
Yeah.
Where, you know, the day before, I'm like, I don't know how I'm going to face tomorrow. And it did, you know, because you got to have that faith. Besides not listening to the faith and conforming to things that make you feel comfortable or conforming to things that you usually conform to, if you can get away from that mindset of, you know, not listening to the Lord, if you can get away from that, your life is going to get better. It might be little by little, and you're still going to struggle. We all sin. We're all sinners in this room. Every one of us, we sin every day. But it won't be as dramatic. And during your life, if you keep having that faith, it will get better. It will get better. But you got to follow him. If you don't do that, it's not. It's not. And you're almost going to live. I like to think of it as now I don't live in a world for myself or my kid, you know, just me, myself, and my kids. I live in a world for Christians and for other people and to help them.
Yeah.
And at some point during the day, every day I try to do something to help somebody else, whether that's holding the door open for somebody, could be something as small as that, or it could be, you know, helping somebody with, you know, whatever, monetary. You know, it could be that. It could be a phone call. You know, it could just be, hey, I'm here to listen, man. If you need to let it out, let it out, and I'm here. I won't say a word, and you can talk to me about it.
That's awesome.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So
It says, whatever you have done for the least of these, you have done to me.
Yeah.
So that's true. Well, ladies and gentlemen, I told you that this was going to be a great episode, and it was, man. And I just want to say thank you for sharing your
Thank you,
heart.
Tyler.
I think that
Or
sorry I
Jared,
cried.
either one.
no, I think that's again, it shows your heart. It shows your passion. You're not just in here making it up as you go along. The Lord has touched your life, and through you, He's going to touch other people. Through you, you have a ministry, and it is going to be an impact for the kingdom. And we need more guys like you to go out and be bold. And that's what our heart is to share the love of God in truth, and the redemption through Jesus is our heart, and we hope that it's blessed you today. I was supposed to say this halfway through the episode, but please hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, share this at the notification bell, follow us on Instagram and TikTok, Convo Faith Friends Family, Convo Faith Friends Family 5. I don't know. We'll put the description and the link down below.
Y'all really do it so they can just keep calling me back.
Yeah, we'd love to have you
Y'all keep
back to
doing it.
share.
Yes, please.
But with that being said, we love you guys. We hope you're blessed, and we'll see you next time.
Bye.
Peace.